This is Cheryl, acupuncture physician, food therapist, herbals, and more. If you're new to this channel, my name is Dr. Williams-Singh, and I do practice acupuncture, food therapy, and herbs that are organic and wildcraft herbs in order to make formulas for people's illnesses and treatments. What if I said that this video is solely based on scientific study and research, based off of this picture that you're looking at, and based off of African information thousands and thousands of years ago? What if I said that black people and European descent people are different? What would you think? Would you think I'm saying one is better than the other? I said, let me say that again. Black people, I'm not talking about socially. On a biological level, they are different in a variety of ways on a cellular level. Actually, I was kidding with you. It's not only going to be based off of what you're looking at right now. It's based off of the highest quality investigative clinical endocrinology of the skin, physiology, and medicine, demonstrating the hormone, that would be vitamin, that you know as vitamin D, and the endocrine gland. This video is for the purpose of education. It is called The Sunlight and Vitamin D in a Global Perspective for Health. And let me give you the name. The name is Wacker and Holic. All this information will be in the description box and you'll be able to read more. I'm not going to be able to read everything because it's a lot of information. In fact, just to bring you in a little bit, it's going to cover some history. It's going to cover some history that created the cause, the reasoning, the information as to why is it so much study was done on the exposure of the sun. And this occurred around 1600 due to Rickets and around the time of the Industrial Revolution or the industrial industry. Another thing that I want to note is not only is sunlight important for your skin to absorb for the conversion of vitamin D, but it also is mentioned in articles Oregon State University and Harvard University regarding COVID-19. In this article that I'm referring to, again, this video is for the purpose of education. It's going to also mention how Big Pharma got involved with changing things in the United States. You're looking at the abstract now, and I'm going to read a part of it, and then I'm going to make a comment. Vitamin D is the sunshine vitamin that has been produced on this earth for more than 500 million years. During exposure to sunlight, 7-dehydroxychloral in the skin absorbs UVB radiation and is converted to pre-vitamin D, which in turn isomers into vitamin D3. Pre-vitamin D3 and vitamin D3 also absorb UVB radiation and are converted into a variety of foster products, some of which have unique biological properties. Sun-induced vitamin D synthesis is greatly influenced by season, time of the day, latitude, altitude, air pollution, skin pigmentation, sunscreen use, passing through glass and plastic, and aging. Vitamin D is metabolized sequentially in the liver and the kidney. Now, guys, if you've seen my videos that I've been showing and putting up, I often speak about the health and the preservation of organs, and this clearly covers that the liver and kidney is involved in the production or the synthesis of vitamin D. Vitamin D also serves, I'm not reading anything, I'm just telling you, it serves to also produce calcium. What you're looking at on the screen now is a part of the abstract. And in fact, guys, basically, this is medical research and detailed information. It's showing you the absorption and the wavelength pertaining to the sun. Now, here's where the problem occurred, that a lot of studies had to be done on the sun because of relevance to the bone deforming and disease in ricket. As the Industrial Revolution swept across North Europe in the 1600s, resulting in buildings built in close proximity and coal burning causing a pall of air pollution, so too appeared bone deforming diseases, rickets in children, and that had devastating health consequences. Those are a picture of some of the men that got involved with this devastating condition that was appearing on children, the deformation of their bones, and what we know as rickets. It states also that in New York City, children was placed on rooftops of hospitals in New York City and demonstrated significant radiologic improvement in the children's rickets. So therefore, these physicians also realized that children of color, that's what the article says, were at much higher risk of rickets and concluded that they needed longer exposure to sunlight to both treat and prevent rickets. The article also reads that, and I quote, vitamin D became so popular that in 1930s and 1940, a wide variety of foods, here we go guys, foods and beverages as well as personal care products were fortified with vitamin D. And it's a wonder what they used in order to make those products. They included not only milk and other dairy products, but also soda pop, beer, hot dogs, custard, and even soap and shaving cream. End of quote. Now let's get back to this, the wavelengths. During exposure to sunlight, solar radiation with wavelengths of 290 to 315 nm penetrates into the skin and are absorbed by proteins, DNA, and RNA, as well as 7-deoxycholesterol. Most of this UVB radiation is absorbed in the epidermis, and as a result, when exposed to sunlight, most of the vitamin D3 that is produced in the skin is made in the living cells. Let me repeat that. It's made in the living cells in the epidermis. This is the reason why after exposure to sunlight, vitamin D3 remains in the skin even when the skin is washed with soap and water immediately after the exposure to the sun. In other words, you cannot wash it. You cannot excrete it from your body in that way. It just stays there because it's being produced by your natural skin exposure. The article also has a list of causes and consequences of vitamin D deficiency, and it also correlates with Oregon State University and Harvard University, and the list is as follows: depression, schizophrenia, infection, URI, TB, asthma, wheezing diseases, high blood pressure. Need I say more? Certain syndromes involved with autoimmune disease, type 2 diabetes, Crohn's, malabsorption. Let's see, what else does it say? This basically is the same list that I saw in the Oregon State University list. There's just a whole host of lists. And let's not forget, for the elderly, calcium deficiency will bring about brittle bones. Pay very close attention to what I'm about to say. Humans evolved at the equator. They were constantly exposed to the sunlight and developed an efficient natural sunscreen, melanin, which has an absorption spectrum and thus can effectively absorb solar UVB radiation. However, even those Africans have extremely dark, heavy pigmentation, and their pigmented skin, a small amount of UVB radiation is able to penetrate to the epidermis to produce vitamin D3. Let me read that again. Africans have extremely dark, heavier pigmented skin. A small amount of UVB radiation is able to penetrate into the epidermis to produce vitamin D3. This was also demonstrated based off of this experiment. When adult whites, European descent, and blacks, African descent, were exposed to the same amount of UVB radiation, and this was done in the tanning beds. Whereas the white adults raised their blood levels of vitamin D3 more than 30-fold, the black adults demonstrated no significant increase in their blood levels of vitamin D3. Now, we're talking about on the tanning beds. So what happened is this. When the black adults were exposed to 5 times more UVB radiation, they increased their blood levels by about 15 folds. This was confirmed surgically. Obtained white and black skin was exposed to sun in Boston in the summer. Basically, what this article is saying is that if you are of African descent, you need to get it from the direct sun, basically, because the person from a European descent, they could get it from the tanning beds. Keep that in mind. The picture of this man that you're looking at, he is a Danish physician and also a scientist. And here's what it says that happened to him. And he was a Nobel Prize. He won the Nobel Prize in 1903. People have a feeling of well-being when exposed to sunlight. This may be due to the fact that the keratinocyte produce B-endorphin when exposed to UV radiation. In the early 1900s, Feinstein, that's the man that you're looking at on the video, observed that exposure to sunlight dramatically improved cutaneous lesions caused by tuberculosis, infection, lupus vulgaris, and received the Nobel Prize in 1903 for his enlightening observation. This led to the use of solariums as a way to treat patients with tuberculosis and gave rise to the use of heliotherapy. This is therapy based now. He used a particular light to improve health. Heliotherapy was used to treat a wide variety of chronic illnesses in the 1900s, and it is still practiced throughout the world, especially in North Europe. However, here's where things change. The rise in the use of big pharma pharmaceuticals to treat acute and chronic diseases led to the demise of Feinstein's heliotherapy, especially in the United States. End of quotes. Further reading the article, it says that the American Academy of Dermatology has taken the extreme position of recommending that no one should ever be exposed to direct sunlight without sun protection. This radical view of sunlight and UVB radiation has led to its designation as a carcinogen. To suggest that one should never be exposed to sunlight because of excessive exposure to sunlight is to an increased risk of non-melanin skin cancer is like suggesting that because breathing 100% oxygen can cause lung damage and death. Basically, what the article is saying, and I'm sure you figured it out, that there is a significant importance of receiving good sunlight. And of course, if your skin is of a darker complexion, you need to stay in the sun longer in order to absorb it in your tissues. Guys, there's sufficient information out there. All you have to do is put in vitamin D deficiency and COVID-19. You can get it from Oregon State University. You can get it from Harvard University. They all came back with the same thing based on test trials and observation. Now let's look at the sun depicted in this picture and just think about this. Melanated people and the role that melanin plays for darker pigmented people. You have melanocytes, dark-skinned people, African descent people, black people. They have melanocytes. And what are melanocytes? Melanocytes are considered as special spider-shaped cells. That is on a cellular level. The article that I'm going to paraphrase is from Dr. Joseph A. Bailey II, MD, and he's also a surgeon. The article is the ancient African, what he says is the following. In general, we already covered the melanocytes. Melanocytes are all throughout different parts of black people. Here's more information to add on to that. The ancient African Bibles, pyramids, texts, 10,000 BC, said the mind's eye, that's the pineal gland, the eye of intuition and vision. The pineal gland is like, it's like a pine-shaped cone, basically. And knowledge was contributed to by observation of the circadian rhythm. That means how your biometabolism of the human body. Everybody has that. The article further says the pineal gland produces melatonin. Now, melatonin is not melanin. Melatonin, which activates the pituitary to release melanocytes. As I said, melanocytes are for black people who have these spider-shaped cells, and it's stimulating the hormones. Now, guys, this very much connects to the sun. It may be mentioned in this way, but this very much connects to the sun. Let's go a little bit further into this article. It is associated with biorhythm and stimulating the brain to produce serotonin, a sleep pattern regulator. Sleep is a process that's dependent on the daylight, that is the sun, is an altered state of consciousness. One reason is that melanin granules form a large neural network whose function is to absorb and decode electromagnetic waves. What did we see in that study? We saw the wavelengths based off of the sun. Pay very close to this, what I'm going to say. Melanin, the chemical key to life, was the first chemical that could capture light and reproduce itself. Next found was the brain draped around the black neuromelanin. That means in your brain. In turn, this was associated with inner vision and intuition and creative genius. And most significantly important is this: the linkages with other carbon atoms form black melanin. That is a part of the genetics of black people. The carbon atoms that you find on the periodical table, that suggests a whole lot in terms of health and well-being and the different places that the melanin is found in one's body. So that is my conclusion to the differences with people who are black versus people from the European descent on a cellular level. And we already discovered that the tanning beds, that the European person would get more out of it, but the person who is of African descent, they would not get anything. The overall reasoning for this video is to suggest and give you a well-rounded understanding of why sunlight is so chiefly important and all the things that it does to the body in order to maintain strong bones, in order to maintain good, proper mental health, in order to also produce the hormone or vitamin D for your system, for the regulation. But this can only be achieved on a better, higher level from direct sunlight exposure. Come back to the Health Light for more videos with deeper understanding based off of clinical studies, based off of citing from medical journals and more. Until the next video.